back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog. This is going to be a weekend reading vlog starting on Friday evening and finishing on Sunday evening, and I thought I would start off by telling you what I am currently reading and what I hope to finish this evening. This book is due back at the library tomorrow, and whilst I can renew it, I would really like to get it done so I can kind of return it with some of my other books I've got to return tomorrow. And it is Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. This one is a historical romance, and in this we are following Hattie Greenfield, who we see in the previous books in this series, and she is a heiress. Her father is a banker and she is the heiress of his fortune, or one of the heiresses of his fortune. And we follow her romance with Lucian Blackstone, who is a self-made man who has got a bit of a bad reputation. He is known to ruin the lives of other members of the peerage by various different means, and basically in this one they are caught in a compromising position, and Lucian kind of forces Hattie's father's hand, and basically ends up forcing Hattie to marry him or risk obviously a big scandal. And so she is forced into marriage with him, and she is quite concerned about the things that she is going to have to give up as a married woman. So at the moment, when she at the start of the book, she is a student at Oxford studying art, and she's very concerned that she is going to have to give this up. She struggles with writing, and it's not, obviously because of the time period, it's not explicitly said that she suffers from dyslexia, but it's obviously meant to be similar to dyslexia, or something like that. And she kind of uses that as a way to try and persuade Lucian not to marry her, because she is kind of seen as the, I guess, weak link in her family. Her family are all quite intelligent and they discuss quite business related things and political things, and because of her struggles with writing, her father is quite dismissive of her. And as I say, we are following their romance. It's quite a reluctant romance. Lucian isn't really at the start really wanting a wife. He sees Hattie as a way of getting into polite society, and he doesn't really see her as a kind of romantic prospect. It's more of like a means to an end, and Hattie definitely isn't interested in Lucian at the start, but we slowly get to see them develop feelings for one another. They spend quite a lot of time in Scotland because that is where Lucian is originally from, and yeah, we're at a point where they are currently in Scotland and he has purchased a mine, and they are staying in this small mining town, and they are both kind of learning things from each other. And I do quite like this. This is a slow burn, and I'm enjoying seeing the romance progress. I've not got too much of this book left. This is how much I've read, and this is how much I've got read. So it is potentially doable to get this read tonight, or the majority of it read tonight, and maybe a little bit in the morning. But I do, as I say, want to get it read so I can return this back to the library. And I think this weekend I will be focusing on some of my library books, because I've got quite a few out, and there are a few that I can't renew that are due back next weekend. So I really want to get a head start on those. So we'll see what I get read this weekend, and I will take you along for the reading journey. I really don't think I'll be doing much this weekend. I'm not sure what the weather is supposed to be like. Last weekend it was really nice weather and was really sunny and relatively warm-ish, but this week's been a lot colder, so I'm not sure what the weather's gonna have in store for us at the weekend. So it might be a weekend where I stay in a lot and get a lot of reading done, which is fine by me. So yeah, I'll share with you an update probably later on once I've hopefully finished this. If not, I'll share an update with you tomorrow, and we'll see what I pick up next to read. So I have finished Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy this one. I really liked the slow burn nature of this romance and how the characters Lucian and Hattie really got to know each other, and I felt that they had a really good connection and almost like a friendship that built up over time. As I said in my previous clip, this was kind of a very much forced marriage situation, and so they really like had to learn to get to know each other. They didn't really know each other very much prior to them getting married, and I really like that in historical romances. I enjoy the ones where they are they do get married quite quickly, but they romance and their feelings for one another develop over time. So I did really like that. This one is probably a little bit less political than the previous two books. There is obviously still talks of politics in this series. I mean, that's the premise of this series as a whole, but this one did have I would say less of a focus on that, which was quite a nice breather from the previous two books, and I really enjoyed this one. I think the third act breakup was not my favourite, but I liked the reconciliation, and I am really happy that I finished this. The fourth book is called The Governor's Gambit or something like that, I think it is, which I will be reserving a copy of from the library so that I can continue on and finish this series. I've really enjoyed picking this series up, and I am a little bit disappointed that I didn't read these sooner, because this one came out in 2021. I think the first book came out in maybe like 2019, 2018. So I've had these ones on my TBR for a really long time, but I haven't obviously got around to reading them until now. And I have really enjoyed reading these. They're not necessarily my favourite historical romances, but they are definitely good, and I do think that they are worth a read. Sadly, Evie Dunmore hasn't published anything for quite a while. I think her last book in this series, which came out in 2023, and she's not published anything since, and I don't think there are any upcoming books like ready to be published. She did have a baby, so that is the reason why she's not written anything for a while, which is, you know, completely understandable. But I will be definitely keeping an eye out for when she does publish something new, because I would really like to read more from her in the future. So that is finished now, and I will be starting the next book, which is going to be Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is another library book that I've got out, and I decided to get this from the library rather than purchasing a copy. I have mixed feelings with Ali Hazelwood's books. I've read pretty much all of them. The only one I've not read is The Love Hypothesis, and then there are a couple of her novellas that I've not read. And for the most part, her books have been okay. I think I've given one of them 2 stars, but the rest have been 3 stars, with the exception, I think, of Bride, and I think Not in Love I might have given 4 stars to as well. But I feel like potentially she is an author that is maybe not for me. I feel like her books might be a little bit overhyped and just not really something I necessarily vibe with. However, this book, I have heard mixed things about this book, but I have also heard from people or seen people talk about this book who, again, a bit like me, haven't really loved her previous books, and they have said that they've really liked this one. So I'm interested to check this one out to see whether I do like this one or not. I don't know if I'm going to pick up more of her books or not. It's really difficult because I feel like I'm missing out, because obviously everyone talks about her books and so many people love her books that I feel like if I don't pick them up, I'm missing out on something. I am definitely interested to check out the sequel to Bride, which I think is going to be called Mate. I've seen the cover reveal for that one, and I'm definitely intrigued to check that one out. I might have to reread Bride before that comes out, but yeah, definitely intrigued, and I'm intrigued to get into this one as well. I don't know too much about the plot, but I think it is a diver and swimmer romance, or maybe they're both swimmers. Oh no, they're swimmers, not divers. Oh no, she does. Student athlete who... Oh, platform diving. So yes, she does do diving. But yeah, I don't know too much about this one. I like to know not very much, but I have heard, as I say, I've heard mixed things, but I have heard a lot of, I would say I've heard more positive things than negative things, but I have heard a few people say that they didn't really love this one, but I'm hoping that maybe this will be the Ali Hazelwood book for me, but we'll see. I will get a few chapters read probably tonight, this evening, before I go to bed, but I will probably update you tomorrow once I've read like further into it, so I can give you some initial thoughts. I wanted to update you on the reading that I did today. I didn't get as much read as I was hoping to, but I did read a bit, so I thought I would update you on what I have read so far today. So I am currently reading 3 different things. This is quite typical for me. I will often read have different books on the go. So I have an audiobook that I'm listening to. As I've said previously, I don't listen to my audiobook very much during the week. I usually maybe like listen to a bit maybe in the morning when I'm making breakfast and getting ready for the day, and in the evening when I am cooking dinner. As I say, like a little bit in the evening, but not very much during the week. Because I listen to music on the bus, I find it quite difficult sometimes to listen to audiobooks on the bus because of the noise on the bus. I feel like to listen and focus on an audiobook I have to have the volume quite loud, which I don't think is probably the best when you're listening like through headphones. So that's why I don't really listen on the bus, and so I do the majority of my audiobook listening at the weekend. And then I usually have a book that I'm reading on my Kindle. That one I can then kind of, if I am ever out and about without a book for any reason, then I can pick that up on my phone as well. But I do usually read on my Kindle at home. And then I usually have a physical book that I read as well. So I'll start with the audiobook because that's the one that I've listened to the most today, because I've been doing things around the house, you know, tidying and laundry and all of that stuff that mostly gets done on the weekend because I work full time during the week and my days out of the house are quite long. I don't work from home, so I don't always feel like I want to do that when I get home, so it does build up and I do most of it on the weekend. So I'm currently listening to Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and this one is the second full-length novel in the Powerless trilogy. So I read Powerless either at the end of last year or maybe even the beginning of this year. I can't actually remember. It feels like a really long time ago, but I know it was like only within the past few months. And I really enjoyed that one, and I'm obviously continuing on with the series. Fearless, which is the 3rd book in the trilogy, comes out in the next few months, and I'm really excited for that one. So I want to obviously be caught up with the series so that I can dive into that when that comes out. And so far I'm really enjoying Reckless, so I won't go too much into what's happening in Reckless, but I will talk about Powerless, which is the 1st book. And in that book we follow Payden, and she is in a world where people have different powers, but she does not have a power, and anyone who does not have a power is classed as an ordinary, and those who are deemed as ordinaries are basically you're not allowed to be an ordinary, so you are often executed if you are discovered to be an ordinary. And she ends up taking part in these trials, and she is quite good at being able to hide the fact that she's an ordinary because she claims to be a psychic, which she's able to kind of easily pretend to be a psychic because she's very good at reading people. And so she takes part in these trials, and while she's taking part in the trials, she meets both of the princes, the heir to the throne and then the spare, and she does form a relationship with kind of both of them, and we get to obviously see that develop through the trials. And the 1st book obviously ends on a cliffhanger. It's a trilogy, so things very much pick up at the end of that book. And this one, as I say, is the 2nd book. and it picks up very much where the first book left off. I won't say obviously what happened at the end of the last book, but now Paden is on the run and Kai has been tasked with bringing her back to the kingdom, and they have spent quite a lot of time together, which I think is quite unusual in a trilogy, especially because he is obviously having to chase after her. They've spent quite a lot of time together in this book, whereas oftentimes in the second book in a trilogy the two characters will spend time apart, but I'm really liking that they are spending quite a lot of time together, and I'm very interested to see where this story is going to go, particularly obviously because I know there is going to be a third book. So yeah, really enjoying that one so far. I think I'm about 70% of the way through that one, so I have really high hopes that I'll be able to get that one finished tomorrow. And then the Kindle book that I'm reading is Tempting Boundaries by Carrie Ann Ryan. So I haven't read too much of this one. I'm about 15% of the way through this one. I've just read a few chapters because this one is actually on my March TBR, and I have realised that it's almost like halfway through the month, or in fact it is halfway through the month, and I have not read any of the books on my March TBR, so I really want to make an effort to get to those. I've been doing well the past 2 months, get into all of the books on my TBR, and I really don't want to not read all of the books I've said that I was going to do, especially because I only picked 6 to do, and then to not read any of them is very poor. So I thought I'd start that one, and Tempting Boundaries is book 2 in the Montgomery Inc. series by Carrie Ann Ryan, and this series follows the Montgomery family, and there are also like spin-off series that she's done that follow like cousins and things like that, and this one, as I say, I've only read a short amount of this one, so it's obviously can't give too much of a synopsis, but it looks like it's going to be a best friend's sister romance. So we have Decker, who is not a Montgomery, but he is a very close family friend of the Montgomerys. He has known them since he was a child. He didn't really have a very good upbringing, and they kind of adopted him into the family, like unofficially adopted him into the family. So he spends a lot of time with them. He attends the family gatherings. He's around the family a lot. And ever since he can remember, he has always had a attraction to... what was her name? Not Miranda. Maya? There's 3 sisters, and they all have a name beginning with M, and I am blanking on hers. There is Miranda and Maya, but they are the 2 other siblings, and I'm really struggling to remember what her name is. I'll insert it here what her name is, but she also is very attracted to Decker, but she is the youngest one of the family. She's obviously, because she's the youngest one, she's very much seen as the baby of the family and kind of treated as such. And so far we've kind of seen them stealing glances at one another, but it's not obviously gone anywhere. Decker is obviously very aware that she is his best friend, who is Griffin, and he obviously doesn't want to cross that line by going for his best friend's sister, and she doesn't think that Decker likes her. So yeah, that's where we're up to at the moment. Obviously their relationship is going to develop, and I'm excited to see that progress. And then the last book that I'm going to mention in this clip is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. So I am reading this one. I am up to chapter 13, so I've not read a ton. And I'm not hating this one, but I also wouldn't say that I'm loving this one either. I think it's still very early days. It's not my least favourite Ali Hazelwood that I've read so far, or from my first few chapters that I've read. I'm interested to see where this one goes. So far, and from what I've heard other people talk about this book, the basic premise is that we have Penn and Scarlett, who are very close friends. I think they're in college. I think it's a college sports romance. So Penn and Scarlett are very close friends, and Penn has been dating a guy called Lucas for a really long time, and he is into certain sexual preferences that Penn is not into, and she ends up breaking up with Lucas because she doesn't think it's fair that obviously she basically that she thinks that they're not compatible sexually, and she doesn't think it's fair for him to obviously have to suppress what, you know, his desires because they don't align with her desires. And it turns out that Scarlett has similar tastes to Lucas, and when they are at a party, Penn gets very drunk and basically says that these Lucas and Scarlett should get together, and they have just kind of been thrown together in terms of a project. She does biology as a subject in college, and she wrote an essay or an assignment that her professor was really impressed with and said that he would like to work with her looking into it further, or he, you know, it's a really good assignment and she would work well in the lab with him. And there's another student that is working on similar research, and we've just got to the point where it turns out that it is Lucas that's working on this research, so they're obviously going to be thrown together and spending more time together. So as I say, I'm not hating this one, but I'm also not like super invested yet. So I will continue reading this one tomorrow and hopefully get further into it, and hopefully either decide whether it is one that I'm like going to be really invested in or not. I think I will try and finish it anyway, because I do really want to see whether I do end up liking this one. As I say, I've heard mixed things, but I have seen someone who has previously said similar things to me about Ali Hazelwood's books really love this one, so that's why I'm kind of hopeful that I am going to like it, but we shall certainly see. But that is all I have read so far today. I'm not going to get much else done this evening, and so I will update you tomorrow. Hopefully I will finish at least one of these books and we'll be able to wrap this video up and give you my final thoughts, but I will see you tomorrow for some more updates. share a reading update with you guys because I have just finished listening to Reckless, and oh my god, this one was so good. So I gave this one 5 stars, and I cannot wait for Fearless to come out. Like, I almost need that in my hands immediately. It comes out, I think, at the beginning of April, so not too long to wait, but I'm also really wishing that I had it in my hands now so I could read it. So this one ends on a massive cliffhanger, and it is something that I didn't see coming, so I can't really go too much into it because I don't want to spoil it for everyone, but this does end on a cliffhanger. It's not kind of where I thought the story was going to go, so I'm really excited and cannot wait for Fearless to come out. So in this one, I think I did mention in my previous clip that we are following Paden after the trials and where Powerless ends, and we follow Paden, who's obviously on the run based on what happens at the end of Powerless, and Kai has been tasked by Kit to go and bring her back, and we spend a lot of time with them, with Kai trying to find Paden, and then when he eventually does, them journeying back to the kingdom to obviously be delivered back to Kit. And the romance in this book is so good between Kai and Paden. There is a lot of pining throughout the book. They obviously really do want to be together, but obviously they, because of events of the previous book, it is obviously harder for them. And yeah, this one was fantastic. I'm so glad that I've decided to pick up this series and give it a chance. And I was when I got to the end of the audiobook, I was kind of sat there and thinking, I was not expecting this. And so yeah, really good, 5 stars. If you haven't picked up this series already, I would really recommend it. There's plenty of time for you to catch up on the there's 2 full-length books, and then there is a short, it's not quite novella length, but it's not quite full novel length either, called Powerful, I think it was called, which was Adina's story, and that one will rip your heart out, and if you go into that, so just know that one doesn't necessarily end on a happy ending. And yeah, really recommend that series, and as I say, you've got time to catch up before Fearless comes out. As I say, Fearless, I'm going to be reading it as soon as I get my hands on it. I do have a pre-order, so that should come through. I think because I don't pay for shipping, so it won't come through on release day. It'll come through a few days later, but as soon as it comes in, I am going to be picking it up and reading it. And I have started reading or listening to, I thought I needed another audiobook to listen to, and I've started Regarding the Duke by Grace Calloway. That is one of my TBR books for the month, and I thought I'd get a start on it. I'm not too far into it yet, so I haven't really got much to say so far, but that is what I am going to be reading. It's historical romance, so I haven't read too much historical romance this month, so interested to check that out. I have obviously read the previous 2 books in this series. This is book 3 in the series. I can't remember the name of the series, but it's a series, I think, following Dukes. I think it might be called Enter the Duke. No, that's one of the other titles. It's something to do with Dukes in the title. I'll put the series name on screen. But yeah, looking forward to diving into that, and I will update you later on once I've read a bit more. I wanted to wrap up this weekend reading vlog. I'll be honest, this weekend I've not really read as much as I would have liked. I've been a bit busy doing like stuff around the house, so I haven't really read as much as I would have liked to, but I have made some progress on my ebook and a new audiobook. I've not really read too much of Deep End. I've not really been in the mood for Deep End, to be honest, so I haven't really got any updates on that one. I will be reading that this week. I feel like maybe when I'm on the bus on my way to and from work, I'll be able to concentrate on it a bit more because I won't have anything else to do, so I'll be forced to read it. So hopefully I'll be able to update you on that during the week. But today I've read more of Tempting Boundaries by Carrie Ann Ryan, and I'm really enjoying this one so far. This one is a best friend's sister romance. So we have Decker, who has been kind of adopted into the Montgomery family. He hasn't had the best childhood. He doesn't have the greatest family. His dad is quite abusive and it has been in and out of jail. So the Montgomerys have kind of taken Decker in. And he is kind of viewed as a member of the family, and for as long as he can remember, he has been attracted to the youngest Montgomery family member, which is Miranda. I was struggling to remember her name in the previous clip, but it is Miranda, and he has often been attracted to her for as long as he can remember, but he hasn't obviously done anything because it's his best friend's little sister. And Miranda is attracted to him as well. She very early on in the books approaches him and asks him out on a date, but he very much rejects her. He clearly wants to say yes, but because of his friendship he is reluctant to accept and rejects her quite aggressively. And so she ends up going on a date with another guy who is a co-worker, and he turns out to be terrible, and that really spurs Decker to act on his feelings. So I've just now kind of got to the point where they are starting their romance, and the family have just found out about them, and Griffin, who is Decker's best friend, he has just found out, and he is really not happy about it. And this is one of the things that I find frustrating with best friend sibling romances, is when the sibling inevitably finds out about the couple, they overreact. And I'm sure, like, I don't know, it's hard because I've never been in that situation, but they're both adults, so I really don't see a problem with them being together. But obviously Griffin really is very overprotective of Miranda because she's the youngest of the family, and he reacts very strongly to this piece of information, and he and Decker do get into a bit of a fight about it. So yeah, I don't understand that mentality, and that happens in a lot of these type of books. But so far I am enjoying it. I don't think it's necessarily my favourite, but it's not necessarily my favourite trope, but I am enjoying it. I really like the family aspect of this series. I like seeing all the other characters, although this is definitely Miranda and Decker's story. We are seeing the other characters. We're seeing Austin and Sierra from the first book. Obviously there's Griffin, and we've got Alex and what he's going through with his wife, and we've got the other siblings as well. There are 8 Montgomery siblings, and they all spend a lot of time together as a family. This is one of the things I love about this series. I love the family aspect. I love big family books, seeing all the family together and all the characters, you know, having their life. I really like that. So really enjoying this one. I'm about just over 60% of the way through this one, so I think it is very doable to get that finished this week. And then for my audiobook, I haven't got too far into this, but I'm listening to Regarding the Duke by Grace Calloway, and so far in this one we are following Adam and Gabrielle, and Adam was orphaned as a child. His mother had told him that his father had passed away, but when she ends up getting ill and ultimately dying, she actually informs him that his father was not dead, and she does know who he was, and she tells him who he is, and he tries to find him but ends up being taken in by these people who are not very nice, and basically force him into, I think, to be like a chimney sweep, and like force him into labour and keep him in really bad conditions. And then we see him seeking out his father, who basically rejects him, and he vows that he's going get revenge, and he seeks out marrying a wealthy woman who is Gabriella, and we then fast forward 8 years later to them being in their marriage, and they're quite content in their marriage. Gabriella is seems very content and they're happy in their marriage. I have read the synopsis and I believe something is going to happen to Adam where he's going to end up losing his memory. I'm not quite sure how that happens and I've not got to that point yet, but I'm interested to see where this one will go. This one is definitely on the spicier side. I haven't read too far into it, but there has already been quite a few spicy moments, and it's okay so far. I don't know if it's necessarily my favourite Grace Calloway, but I am, as I say, I'm listening to this one on audio, so I probably won't get too much of this read during the week, but we'll see. But this is where I'm going to end this weekend vlog, and then I'm going to start tomorrow, and hopefully we'll make some better progress. I feel like this weekend I've not read as much as I would normally do, or finished as much as I would normally do. I've only actually finished one book, which was Reckless by Lauren Roberts, but I did really enjoy that one, so it was, you know, obviously I don't class it all as a fail. You know, I've read a book that I really enjoyed and gave that 5 stars, but you know, in comparison to the previous weekend where I did get quite a few books read, but I have done a bit more this weekend. I've been out a bit more, not really doing anything like super exciting, but just like out of the house a bit more, not being able to read. So yeah, that is all I have for this vlog. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I will start a new vlog on Monday and we'll see what I get read during the week.